Welcome to this video on the Zenwara channel. My name is Adisatguru, Buddha Rawa Bhagwan. In today's video on the Zenwara channel, we're going to talk about technologies of the Kara. So what is the Kara? The Kara is the Sikh bracelet that you might have noticed on Sikh individuals. So it is a perfectly circular bracelet called the Kara. And it is made of different materials. Normally it would be made out of steel or out of sarblo. So different reasons for wearing steel versus sarblo. Okay. The steel can be used by someone who uses magic. Most magic practitioners cannot use a sarblo kara because a sarblo kara deadens the use of magic as it protects from magic as well. So anyone who's a young Sikh exploring spirituality and has some desire to explore more occult parts of the arts of war, well then normally steel would be better, because steel gives you a protection and is the connection of the remembering always the Guru and the right action on your wrist, and represents the eternal teachings of time of the Gurus and the eternal nature of the teachings, and it represents the protection of the parampara of the Gurus. And the metal is important, and it also represents in steel. It protects, but it leaves like an opening because it's not pure iron, right? Like the sarblo. And we won't discuss the purity, but that's what we would call the sarblo, okay? All iron, okay? So basically the steel here allows for the use of magic more freely while providing protection, so it's for everybody. So is the sarblo, because theoretically most people aren't using magic. But for those who are going to go for more occult practices, they would wear steel more than sarblo, because in most cases the sarblo is going to dull their ability to use magic, as it protects more from magic than this. So this, you can be as protected with sarblo or even more protected than sarblo with your personal technologies, right? Your personal technologies and defenses that you establish. But this sets a baseline that nothing can pass, right? And you protect with your technologies the weaknesses because it's not full sarblo. And with full sarblo, more powerful practitioners will also be able to use magic. So they can use the advantages of sarblo, which gives them, takes away the sound, the noise basically, right? While allowing them to focus on their processes, right? But they also must remember to keep an ear to the street, right? So the sarblo protects from direct magical attack, protects the practitioner who wears it because of the metal, which is a revolutionary metal which changed the art of spiritual battles. And the Sikh armies armed themselves with the sarblo and were protected from magic in many ways. Now it doesn't protect in all the ways, it doesn't protect from area effect things. And also magic practitioners of a high enough level can go through the protections of the sarblo, right? But generally, for the vast majority of people, and we're talking more than 99%, it protects against anything they could send. So it takes away all the noise and protects very much the sarblo. And this protects as well as steel, right? The protection of the kara, right? And the story of the kara and the protection of the kara, which protects. But it doesn't deaden magic as much as the sarblo. It's more like a shield, but it doesn't deaden the magic like the sarblo. The sarblo really mutes, grounds, deadens the magic, right? So that's why steel, for example, for fairies, for the fairy folk, Steel is not very well received, but iron is even worse, right? Because iron is harmful to them. It hurts them. It burns them, basically, right? So for many, many different kind of spirit beings, iron or steel protects, but iron, Sarblo, protects the most, right? But it doesn't allow people to interact with magic as much, right? So if people have that in their path, most practitioners would not use the Sarblo, or if they were Sikh, would wear a steel kura, more traditional practices focused on the sword, for example, would the ones who practice in martial arts the most physically would probably wear the kura if they're specialized in that, in Sarblo, to protect themselves the most magically. And then you have the magic casters as well, right? As you have in every culture and society and group, right? And the Sikh armies of light also have their magic casters and their magic lineages, as well as they have their martial lineages as well, and techniques and practices and transmissions and all these different things. The same goes for magic practitioners. So there are battlefields spiritually where the Sikh armies wage war against those who use evil arts and try to oppress the world and all these things. And they are supported by their magic casters, the Sikh armies. It's terrifying to go to battle without your magic casters. And so there's steel and there's Sarblo, right? Now there's different technologies. So these are the base metals and how they work. So how they protect, they both protect, right? Very much from magic aimed at you, from bad stuff aimed at you. So it's very important to wear the kura. It is for everybody. But the Sarblo protects the most. So many people, if they want to retire too, retire spiritually at the end of their lives, something like that, they just want to relax, have as much protection as possible, and just have a simple life, they would go for the Sarblo. Someone more active, exploring spiritual processes and all that, might go more for the steel kura. But the technologies that you put in place to defend yourself are more important than the metals themselves, because they can be even stronger. But for the majority of people, the Sarblo is stronger than what they can develop magically, because most people aren't that talented naturally magically. So the Sarblo is a great protection against magic from all the sources, mostly where it would come, except from the strong practitioners. The very strong ones who can go through the Sarblo, who know techniques to go work around it, because you can also affect someone in someone's environment who's not protected by the Sarblo, and that would directly impact the person who is. Different things can be done. And on the battlefield, spiritually, if you're casting mass effect spells, well, those will hit the people with the Sarblo as well. But the things aimed directly at a person, the maximum protection armor you can give yourself is the Sarblo. So the steel doesn't rust, so that's nice too, right? It's less trouble to maintain the physical appearance of steel than it is iron if you go into water and stuff like that. Now there are technologies of the kura as well, right? So the technologies of the kura, you have different shapes of the kura. So you have first of all, the technology of making it into a circle, the eternal circle, right, of infinity. Right? A link, a perfect circle, right? A perfect protection, unbroken for the wrist, for the energetic strong point, etc. Right? So you have the wrist, which protects, which is a full circle. The full circle goes full circle around the body. So you have technologies of lineages and practices of defense, which can be done with links and circles and stuff like that. Right? As far as processes put in addition to the metal of the kura to defend yourself. So the kura itself, it surrounds the body with ring, basically. And the ring protects the body, right? Takes care of anything that wants to go attack the body or attack what's inside. So it protects, right, the ring. Now there's different technologies. There's thicknesses of the kura, so how thick is it, right? How powerful, how heavy is it, right? Iron is heavier than steel. So how heavy is it, right? And the weight is very important, for the weight is the power of the item, the mass of the item, right? The mass of the metal and how it repels and how strong it is against magic, right? So that's very important as well. How heavy is it, right? Basically, how useful would it be in a real fight too, right? A physical fight. You know, if you were to use it, for example, to punch someone, to slap someone, to hit someone, or to defend your wrist against an attack that would seek to disarm, for example, right? Disarm you from your wrist that has your kirpan, right? How effective would it be? How big is it, right? How heavy is it, right? How useful is it as a tool in a situation of combat, right? And its physical usefulness also applies to its spiritual usefulness. Okay, this is something to remember. Like when you talk about physical defenses in our system, these are also spiritual defenses, right? So something as simple as a guardrail on a balcony, it's a physical defense so people don't fall. But because it's a physical defense, it also serves as a spiritual defense. So the Kara. And there are different technologies. So there's the circular shape. So right away you're using a technology, right? And the technology physically to make the metal take the circular shape and hold it, right? To polish it, to do everything you need to do with it, right? The technology that's put inside the Kara. So now you have the base metal of the metal, and talking about the sarblo, the base metal of the sarblo. Now you add to it technology, right? So now it's been used with improved with technology and its efficacy, okay? And now you have different ways of technology. So you have the smooth Kara, for example. I'll bring this close. You have just a circle like that, a very simple circle. This is my first Kara that I received, okay? I received it at the local Gurdwara, okay? They were very kind enough to give me a free Kara, all right? They had many sizes. If people want a Kara, they can go to a Gurdwara for a Kara. And this one is made of steel, right? Stainless steel. But this one here is circular like this, and you can see it's very symbolic in a way because it's not that protective of the wrist, right? It protects a little bit the wrist, but not all that much, right? It's a thin loop, right? Now you have this one here, which is much thicker, right? Which has, right, two edges, right, here, and which has a spike here, if you want to see it that way, or a protrusion here coming out, an edge, as it's called, right? We have this one here, right, which is a thicker Kara, and this one here is made of sarblo, right? So you have different technologies of making the Kara, right? You have the circular technology which goes into it. You have the technology of making it more or less thick, right? You have the technology of putting edges on it or protrusions on it coming out of it, or triangles if you want to see it that way, okay? So now you can have circular technology and you can have triangle technology on your Kara, right? So if you understand these technologies, your Kara now becomes more effective because you use the technologies of the triangle and the circle, right, in your utilization of the Kara in self-defense processes. And then you have edge technology as well, right? So for example, if you have edges on it, if a blade was to hit it, the blade would maybe go off the main spike and hit an edge and stop at the edge, right? A protection, an additional protection in the edges, right? And then you have different technologies. You have the Kara that have 8 lines, for example, or less lines. And it's a bit pretentious to wear the one with the 8 lines, to tell you the truth, because there's a story to the one with the 8 lines, but it's not a problem, right? It means basically that you've attained a very high level of knowledge. Traditionally is what that would mean, okay? A very high level of knowledge at the 8 lines. So these are now no longer necessarily as much of as a defense like spikes or triangles or things like that. Now you're putting the defense in the knowledge levels and levels of knowledge in the lines, hands, right? So this becomes more of a symbolic application, retaining the main application of the Quran. And also those are very thick usually, so that gives it an additional protection of being very wide on the wrist, right? So there's different technologies and applications and how they can be used in the Quran. So they are developed with different technologies. And depending on your utilization and understanding of the technologies of your Quran and the technologies of your personal defenses that you implement in addition and coordination support with your Quran, well, then this determines the efficacy of your protection against any forces that would come towards you. Obviously, the Quran is very important, and in the magical lineages, to enchant the Quran so that it protects and floats around the body and destroys, cuts off any threads trying to connect, and gives that repercussion back to anything trying to connect with that vibrational hit, and all these different magical lineages and techniques that exist, right, in personal defense, for we are all computer systems, right, and we must personally defend ourselves in our processes with our knowledge, with our remembrance of our knowledge, and with our applications of power, right? And our faith in the Guru and God. Okay. So, and I'm just going to say it right now because I need to say it, and the goddess. So there are different technologies of the Quran. Okay. You can use technologies of the circle, which is used in the Quran, which is the main technology of the Quran. Technologies of thickness, right? Technologies of weight, technologies of triangles, technologies of edges, technologies of jagged edges, different technologies and stuff like that, right? And their applications and symbolic or realistic application in the real world symbolize the connection between their spiritual applications as technologies. So, choose your Quran wisely.